Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 61 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 61 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you're new here, welcome, and thank you so much for listening. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back, old friend. How are you? I'm so excited that you chose to listen to me another week. I hope I'm adding value on this journey that we call life. The Well Done Life podcast is a safe space for women to share their stories. I truly believe that we all learn and grow by sharing our stories. Each of us, I don't think, is an expert at this thing called life. Nobody is. And I think that one of the great things that we all need to discover about ourselves is that if we actually sat down and had a conversation and shared some of the things that we've been through, we would inspire everyone to grow and learn together, because that's what this is all about. That's what life is about. So hopefully you view me as that person here to help inspire you to tap into your inner expert, because it's there. And I want the world to see you because we need you. So before we dive into this week's episode, I want to just say hello again, like I said, to everybody, and send some love and blessings to everyone. We are going through so much, and we're going to talk about some of that this episode, but I want to make sure that we start everything where it should be rooted in, and that's love. So I know the world again is starting to open up, and a lot of people are feeling pandemic weary, myself included, but please make sure that you're still protecting yourself. Remember, we're still navigating through a pandemic. Life goes on, but so does the need to still be vigilant. So please make sure that you are treating yourself like the temple that you are. Stay focused and do your own research. I feel like empathy and intellect are essential in times like this. And that's kind of going to lead me into today's topic, which is, I guess, kind of starting it off. How's your mental health this week? Are you feeling traumatized too? Yeah, I said too. I'm feeling good right now. It's been definitely a better week, and I'm really grateful for that. I've been overwhelmed, but kind of like what I was mentioning in my last week's episode, just keep swimming. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, don't worry. I'm going to put it in the show notes. I just felt like lately there have been like countless times where I've just wanted to quit and run away. And I know I'm not alone on that. It's just that, I think we all have so much that we're trying to accomplish. And it sometimes gets challenging when we're so connected and we can't separate ourselves from the stress, and you just have to keep pushing through. But I mean, that's really all we can do. And I have to admit, I'm doing everything I can to stay in the game, because I know that they have bigger plans in motion right now that I don't want to give up, because I know that this is something that I was called to do. And for those of you that are feeling that way, that you felt like this is a time where you are called to do something, I just want to say, keep swimming, keep staying encouraged in spite of everything that's going on. Please still stay encouraged, because obviously there is something magnificent that you are about to do. But like I said, I'm feeling a little traumatized, and I wonder how everybody else is feeling. It's just, there's so much trauma that's been happening lately, and it's overwhelming. It really is. I think between all the continuous mass shootings and police shootings, I'm spent. I mean, I really am spent. And I've talked numerous times in the past about the complexities of being Black in America from my vantage point. And I'll be honest, I can't tell you how disappointed I am that we're back here again. And I know that probably sounds cliche, but it's really true. And it kind of even caused me to struggle a little bit in recording this episode. I'm actually recording late. It's Saturday night right now when I'm recording this at 9:47 p.m. because I'm kind of like, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? Should I just dial it in? But I said no, because I know that, or I'm hopeful that maybe someone will learn something from this episode, which is what the Well Done Life is about, growing and sharing our stories. But at the same time, I just feel like we can't heal what we don't reveal. And I've said that before, and I'm going to guess it's so true now. We just have to keep talking about it so that we can learn how to heal from it and maybe learn how to put empathy in the air. So that's my hope, because like I said, I'm trying to take this from a stance of love. But like I mentioned, it's a complex relationship being Black in America from my vantage point. And like I said, I'm disappointed that we're here again, because I think a part of me was kind of hopeful that things wouldn't go back to this so quickly. And I know that probably sounds just so maybe kind of positive, but not positive. Like I was hopeful because, we're still dealing with the pandemic, the election's over. I was just hopeful that things would kind of dial down for a while. Like we wouldn't be at level of 10 all over again. But instead of going to like level 10 right now, it feels like we're starting to get to like level 100 in less than a few months. It's only April. Technically, we're only 4 months into the year, almost 5. And it is just amazing to me at the level of violence that we are seeing going on right now. I did a little research, so I'm not just taking that just from my vantage point. I read recently when I was preparing for this episode that as of April 16th, there have been 147 mass shootings in the United States. In 4 months, 147 shootings. That's bananas. Because when I look back, I think even from prior year, we're seeing a trend upward, which is unfortunate because even last year was crazy too. But again, 147, mass shootings as of April 16th. So we're dealing with that, all of that while navigating the Derek Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd, and then the additional shootings that have just happened as of late of Daunte Wright, Adam Toledo, Anthony Alvarez, Trayvon Chadwell, and Casey Goodson Jr. And Casey Goodson Jr., unfortunately, his shooting happened last year, but it's just being brought to light now. Unfortunately, this young man was shot walking into his home. He was shot 5 times in the back by a policeman. And it's just, there's so much death. And it's just disturbing because all of these men were under the age of 25. Even more sad was Adam Toledo was only 13. My goodness, it's just so much to process. And to be honest, I've kind of caught myself feeling a little numb to it. And that troubles me, but it doesn't surprise me. And let me kind of give a little reference, because I know that probably sounds harsh to say numb to all of that. I'm not numb to the loss of life. The loss of life is devastating and cruel. And when I've read some of these stories or unfortunately been subjected to some of these videos on the news, I cannot help but cry, because I can only imagine what their families are going through, and prayers to the families and around that these deaths leave behind. But I've become a little numb to believing that this isn't our norm. And that's where I struggle, because that again ties back to the complex expectation of America as a Black person. And that, like I said, it's the most unfortunate part of it, or one of the most unfortunate parts, because again, I hope that one day these things won't be the norm. See, my little soul still believes that there is hope we can fix it. I truly do believe that there is a way, but unfortunately, in order for us to deal with that way, we have to address the roots of our problems. And the roots of our problems being xenophobia, classism, racism, and all the branches that these segments, these horrors have woven into our society and taken root. And I just don't, if that doesn't happen, I don't really see change happening. And that's why I feel like we have to keep having conversations about it. And that's why I kind of wanted to take this episode to do a trauma check. Because if we don't take steps to protect our sanity, then this norm, in air quotes, will become our undoing. And I don't want to see that happen. And so, like I said, I wanted to do a trauma check. And when I feel like you do a trauma check, you have to kind of understand what the root of trauma is. So I did a little research on trauma. So, of course, you know me, I love to be foundational. I'm always one of those Merriam-Webster persons for the proper definition of things. So here's what I found. I mean, trauma, as defined in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is a noun. The first meaning is an injury, such as a wound to living tissue caused by an intrinsic agent, a disordered psychic or behavioral state resulting from a severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury, an emotional upset, the personal trauma of an executive who is not living up to his own expectations is an example of the word, or an agent, force, or mechanism that causes trauma. And so we have at least like a base foundation of what we're talking about. Trauma has many different roots, but essentially it is something that causes upset, that stresses you emotionally, that bothers living tissue, an injury, a wound. And, you know, with injury and wound, if you don't properly take care of it, that injury, that wound can fester and it can become infected, and then it takes root, and that root can ultimately kill you. So that leads me back to what I was mentioning in my other statement. As I mentioned previously, until we deal with our mechanisms of trauma, in quotations, the xenophobia, the classism, the racism, and the capitalism of our society, we will continue to have a society that is perpetually in a state of trauma. And let me just kind of preface it this way before we go deeper. And probably if you haven't figured out, this is probably going to be maybe a heavier episode for some people. But I think, again, part of the living the well done life is sharing your story, sharing your experiences so people can learn and grow. So I am hopeful that this moment, this trauma check will help someone learn and grow, but also may help you understand the pain that as Black Americans we go through, as Brown Americans that we go through, as Asian Americans that we go through, because xenophobia is real and we get separated and divided in so many sections and pitted against each other. And it can get to the point where we are fearing for our lives out here on this race to survive. So people who are not necessarily affected, you need to understand you have a role in possibly my survival. So I have to share my pain, my story, my experiences with you so that you can help me help you. And we can all maybe learn how to take rid of these roots that are reaching into our society so fast. So that's why I said, let me preface it like that. And let me also kind of say that I know that not everyone feels traumatized by what they're seeing right now. And bless you. And those could be, and I'm not going to say what race it could be that may not be feeling that, because I don't know. You know, I've noticed there's some Black and brown people who don't feel this way either. You know, some of y'all may not feel it. Asian people, I don't know. All I know that if you are not impacted by this, then bless you that you have the luxury of moving through this life unaffected. However, be cautious with that. And I say that because you want to make sure that you don't want to get haughty. I feel like there is a haughtiness that lends to some people. Like some people are like, oh my goodness, you know, those things that are going on, that trauma. I don't understand that because it doesn't affect my life every day. And that is very true. But remember, oppression of one group opens up the opportunity to oppress the masses. It just hasn't caught up with you yet. So you have to understand that life moves very swiftly, and so does karma. So make sure you try to lead with empathy and seek to understand versus being judgmental or aloof, because the fall can be devastating. And I pray that you never experience that, but I want you to understand that in this moment, it is better to seek to understand than to seek to judge. Just wanted to, again, throw that little preface out there. However, for this conversation, for this moment in time, let me speak to those of us who are feeling traumatized. Because like I said, I am feeling traumatized. And I know that there are other people out here who are feeling traumatized. And I want you to understand that you are not alone. Please know that it's okay that we feel this way. And we have to give ourselves space to process our feelings, because that's what people don't understand. Like, even though, yes, unfortunately, I don't know any of these people personally, I still feel the pain of their loss because there is a kinship amongst us. as Black people, I can only speak again from my experience as a Black woman. But when I see a Black person killed, I am sad. When I see a Black person commit an atrocity, I am sad. I am heartbroken. I'm even in some instances embarrassed because I know that we are better than that. I love my people. So I feel the good, the bad, and the ugly of that with that love. And so it's deep. And I think we all do feel those ways for a lot of ourselves and for the people that are like us, for our culture, because you don't want your culture to be embarrassed, to be hurt, to be dismayed. But then I also think very heavily of the people who are left behind in these atrocities, because then you have to pick up the pieces. And I don't care. There's not enough of civil settlements. There's not even enough jail time that will ever replace that person that these people lost. And it is devastating. And I feel that way no matter the color of someone's skin, because I value life. Regardless of how it is given and to who it is given, I value life. And I hate to see life taken away so unfairly. And as a Black American, I always think back to one of the things that James Baldwin said. To be conscious and Black in America is to be in a constant state of rage. And that is true. And you know what? That's okay. Because we have that right to process. The great thing about us is that we can function in rage. We don't go to work and just act foolish, but because we have learned how to code switch and navigate so well that we can function in rage. But that creates, again, feeding into the trauma, that festering, that wound, because we have to diminish our feelings in order just to navigate through the world, because unfortunately it is a constant state of atrocities or microaggressions on a daily basis that perpetuate trauma. So in times like this, it is very triggering because you're facing the abruptness of it as well as trying to deal with your daily navigation through it. And it is difficult. So, like I said, I feel like it's okay for us to feel that way because we can and because we are processing on a daily basis. But at the same time, when we are processing, we do understand that we have to channel those things, not just into making it through the day, not just into surviving. We have to focus our energy into things that allow us to preserve our peace and our sanity, because that is always being tested. But it is so critical that we do that. So I feel like I wanted to kind of like talk more about it because during this time, I feel like there seems to be a misunderstanding or apathy to trauma as it relates to Black and brown people. And I would even start to believe maybe Asian American people, people of color, because I feel like, a lot of people have started to leverage our pain, or let me take that back. They are amplifying our pain for ratings and for likes and for shares. And I wanted to kind of dive into it because, again, that is part of how you really get to the root of processing trauma. And I am, like I said, speaking from this more so from the lens as a Black person, because as a Black person, I can speak to my trauma more so than I can speak to anyone else's as eloquently as I can, as eloquently as I will try to be, not as I can, and hope that some of it may resonate with you. So I'm going to link in the show notes some articles that I think will give some clear insight into it from Luvvie Ajayi Jones. And she's also known online as Awesomely Luvvie. She wrote 2 great articles that I feel like really help process during times like this. And one is the stages of what happens when there is injustice against Black people. And there is also another one about images of Black death and the Groundhog Day of police brutality. And both of those articles, like I mentioned, are really, really great. The first one about images of Black death and the Groundhog Day of police brutality, there really feels like a cycle. And unfortunately, I notice when Black people are murdered or killed, especially in the by law enforcement with body cameras for supposed transparency, there our death circulates the news faster than anything. And hashtags be damned, but those videos are so traumatic. And unfortunately, they make their rounds on social media and people start to share them, obviously, to bring awareness. But when you're bringing that awareness, it's like we are cultivating our own trauma. We are magnifying our own trauma because you share it with one and then one person shares it with another. And then it all, of course, is starts to share by 12. And then you have constant Black death surrounding you. And it is so traumatic. I personally have made the decision that I try to do everything in my power to not be subjected to watching our murder on television. I don't ever want to see any of the videos. When people send them to me, which is very rare now, thank God, because one, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. I try to block that stuff or ignore it or delete it as quickly as I can because I don't want to see any atrocities against us like that. Because for me, I'm empathic. So when I see things like that, I feel it and it just rips at my soul. It's a scene of a part of Harry Potter where they talk about, I can't believe I'm throwing Harry Potter in this, but it might make sense, where they talk about how Lord Voldemort split his soul into all these different Horcruxes, or just different parts of his soul were contained in these items. But essentially, he had to kill 9 people because in order to do it, to split his soul 9 times. And I think it was Albus Dumbledore, Professor Dumbledore, who said to Harry, Slugworth, Professor Slugworth, I can't believe I'm trying to remember this, sorry, told Harry that when you commit a murder, it splits your soul. And every time I see a murder video on the internet in some form or fashion, I feel like a part of my soul is being ripped out every time I watch a person die. It's just devastating to me. And it angers me because I don't see white people getting killed on the internet. I don't ever have to watch that. But I watch us all the time. And then it makes me even think back to our history of how when we were lynched, it was like public execution. People would actually, after the body was lynched and burned, they would take pieces of the body as souvenirs. We were sold that way. It's like it was entertainment. And Black Death has to stop being viewed as entertainment. It is murder, and it is not entertainment. And unfortunately, when that is shown on the news and across the internet, that's exactly what it does. But what it also does is it rips at the soul of the very people who watch it, and it tears you apart. And I know I'm not the only person who feels this way. There are many of us now who we just don't want to see it. It's unfortunate that it even happened, but then to have to watch it perpetually every time it's reported on, it just rips at the soul of a person. And that's inhumane. And it's cruel to not just us, but to that person's family, because that is just a constant cycle of trauma. And we have to get rid of that. But then why do we do that? And no one really seems to have a good answer. It's not like you have to continuously show a person getting killed in order to be able to report on the story. So I would definitely, like I said, I would link that article because it's a great article and gives you insights into that from Luvvie's perspective. And she did a great job explaining it. And one of the other ones that she talks about is the stages of what happens when there's injustice against Black people, and how we go through the stages of shock and anger and resentment and fear and, the stages of processing, the stages of grief. You have to understand when all of this trauma is being perpetrated against you, it is all of those emotions having you just so confused and being leveled at you all at once. It's so much to bear. And it's just, again, another cycle of trauma. And we have to get to a point where we can think about that. And it's not just injustice against Black people, it's against brown people, it's against Asian Americans. There is just so much that we have to stop. And everyone acts like we're supposed to just take it on the chin, but there's only so much that you can do. I mean, we're human beings. So we feel and we love, even if we don't know these people. Don't think that there is not a kinship. Don't think that we don't feel that. And I know it's not just Black and brown and Asian American peoples. I know that there are allies as well who feel it. But again, there's not enough allies saying to stop it. So that's why we have to leverage our voices and have these conversations, to do trauma checks with each other and have real conversations around trauma, because this is what we're dealing with every day. But again, like I said, they're great articles, and I would definitely recommend that you read them, because I would love to say that there is just like some easy fix to this, but there's not. And they talk about it a lot, obviously, from those articles talk about it from the perspective of injustice and police brutality. But we are also, like I said, dealing with mass shootings. And that is just, again, another segment of the society that we have to deal with. I think back to, I remember the first mass shootings that I kind of remember hearing about that really kind of stuck with me are obviously Columbine stuck with me. Sandy Hook broke my heart, because I just didn't understand how between both of those we couldn't as a society come together to figure out ways to stop these atrocities from happening. And then the list just continues on, and I'm not going to list them all because they're all tragic, and those families are broken, and those lives were lost. And so, again, I'm just so sad. I'm so saddened that we're back here so quickly after we've already just buried over 500,000 people to a pandemic. Here we are burying more, but we're burying more now to guns and brutality. So that's why I said I felt like we kind of need to do a trauma check, because we're living in a cycle of perpetual trauma, and we have to figure out a way to move through it. Like I said, I'm making a choice. I make it a point not to look at any type of videos. I also do limit my news intake. I do like to read articles about it, so I do read the newspaper or online, or I'll watch CNN or other MSNBC and other stations for certain viewpoints on it. I might watch trials here and there, but I try to watch my media consumption, because sometimes media is obviously slanted based upon the salaciousness of the content, because they're trying to increase engagement, because that engagement creates advertising dollars, which in turn turns to revenue. And everybody's got to do what they got to do to flip a dollar. But at the same time, as a citizen, as a person, as a human, we also have to understand what's going on and be clear and protect our energy. Because if you don't protect your energy, that trauma then, like I said, pulls apart at you. It rips at your soul. And then you wind up broken even further than where we already are. And a lot of us are living through experiences personally that we've either had with, unfortunately, the police, or we know friends or family who have been affected by violence. And again, those traumas start to pull at us. So we have to make sure that we take that time to be careful and genuine with our soul. And then I would also say this is a time where maybe it is, if you are really struggling, time to glean into therapy. I think I mentioned before where I've gone to therapy. I recently talked about trying to go back, but my therapist was like, maybe you don't need a therapist, you need a life coach. And she's still right. I'm still feeling emotionally good, but at the same time, I have really tightened back up on my journal writing, because I at least gives me an outlet to express my emotion. Some people aren't in the situation where they have a group of people that they can talk to, or a support system. And so if you're out here trying to go through this on your own and trying to navigate through your trauma, write it out, or try to seek out help. There are so many resources out here, and I don't think it's a shame or a sin or anything wrong to speak to somebody. It's not, because we all process things differently. And you need to be able to do that. And for those of us who have people around us, we have to be able to say to our friends, how are you doing today? How's your mental health today? I have one friend in particular who does that every time I see her. Her name is Brittany, and she'll always say, how's your mental health, friend? Because she's very in tune that way. Even though she's dealing with her own stuff, she always does that to me. I feel like it's a time where we have to talk to each other. We have to really check in on each other. They always have this saying, check on your strong friends. Hell yeah, check on your strong friends, because your strong friend can be suffering. But at the same time, check on your weak friends. Maybe let's try to be empathetic. Let's try to lead with love. Let's try to seek to understand versus judge. Because all the time that we spend judging and not understanding is time that we spend missing the point, missing an opportunity to grow. And as we can see right now with everything going on, we need to take those opportunities to learn and grow as quickly as we can, because things are ramping up fast. And we need to start to come together as quickly as we can so that we can try to be voices and lights for change. Because we are still that force. We are still that light. Yes, we can still be out here trying to do all the things, win and make money and live and survive and travel. But at the same time, we have to be lights. We are lights. And as lights of the world, we have to share our truths, and we have to support each other, and we have to stamp out inequality when we see it. We can't turn a blind eye anymore. Turning a blind eye is what has led us to this point where we are right now. And we're almost at a breaking point. And it's unfortunate, but this is where we're at. So what are we going to do to change it? Because I know personally I'm not willing to sit by and let it happen. And I know you're not either. So I hope that you will use that side of yourself for the right, but at the same time, take care of yourself too. Don't sit there and expose yourself consistently to trauma. Make the choice sometime to separate from it. Make some choices to have some conversations about it. And if you're hurting, seek help, because there is help out here. Don't be afraid. And even if you don't want to seek help or you're unsure of it, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm not a counselor by any means, but I always try to listen with an open heart. And if I can help you, I will definitely make sure I help you find someone who can help you. And I'm not afraid to have conversations that are uncomfortable, because this was kind of uncomfortable. I mean, I'm coming at this from a trauma perspective because I'm feeling traumatized. Like I do, and it's kind of hard for me to express that to people, because you want to be positive, but I believe in positivity with realness. This is real. Like, yeah, I'm optimistic, but I also recognize how raggedy the situation is right now, and how we have to be honest about where we are so that we can move forward. So if you want more of that, don't hesitate to reach out, because just know I'm always going to give you the honest truth. This is how I'm feeling, and this is what it is. So I hope you take this little trauma check to maybe inspire yourself to remember to pull back a little when you need to pull back, and seek help when you need to seek help, but also to understand the traumas that people are facing. Just understand, just because someone's smiling in your face right now doesn't mean that they're not feeling it. They're still feeling it, but we're just learning how to cope through it. That's what a lot of us have done. And unfortunately, it gets us through in many ways, but sometimes it bubbles up to the top, which is where we could all be right now. So I'm really hopeful that we will move through. But I just wanted to, like I said, hop on today to kind of talk about this and hopefully inspire someone to have a conversation, hopefully inspire someone to get some help. I'm going to put links to all the articles that I referenced from Luvvie Ajayi Jones in the show notes, as well as I will put some other articles there in regards to trauma and other things. But please, like I said, if you are at any point struggling, make sure that you reach out to someone for help. And if there's anything that I can do to support you on the journey, I will, because we're all in this together. We're lights. Remember, you are a light. And no matter what the world will tell you, you have to know that. And we have to encourage each other to be lights and truths and share our stories so that we can learn and grow together. So that's all I have for this week. I definitely will be back next week. I am hoping that this week is a better week for us all. I am sending prayers into the atmosphere with my ancestors for more empathy and understanding. Please be as empathetic and understanding as you can this week. Try to lead with that. Try to understand. I know we all have our own agendas, but seek to understand versus to judge, because that will open up more doors for you than anything. I pray that you have an awesome week, and I will talk to you guys soon. Oh, and all of my information on the how, I almost forgot y'all. All of my information will be in the show notes. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I look forward to talking to you. Have a great one. Bye-bye.